I want to begin by pulling back the curtain on what Dominique Foxworth wanted to do to start this show today, that he no longer wants to do to start the show today.
Oh, that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nah. No curtains need to be pulled back.
Dominique was emotional. David Sampson's here with us, by the way, as well.
Hey, David. Oh yeah,
Hello,
I got some critiques for you.
But wait,
too later.
before we get to the critiques,
I'm trying to help
Dominique
David get
versus
better.
David.
It's not verse. We're on the same team.
Sure, it's not.
I want him to get better. Anyway, go ahead.
Before we get to that, I just want to point out that Dominique Foxworth was walking around downtown Miami last night and getting a little
That's
emotional.
dangerous, by the way. Very dangerous.
Yeah, it's actually, I have lots of downtown Miami stories, but that's another thing because Pablo wants to embarrass me instead. Please proceed.
I just got a text from Dominique yesterday that said that he wanted to start the show today with like a pregame speech.
Then I changed my mind.
But it was a pregame speech born of genuine emotion because you were kind of like tearing up, it sounded like, walking around downtown Miami.
Nope. Not so. All right. We will not do the emotional pregame speech because we don't need that. But the fact of the matter is, I was appreciating what Dan has entrusted us with. And when Dan announced the death of his brother, I called him immediately. And then I did the obligatory, anything I can do to help, let me know. And he was like, come down and do the show for me. And I judged him and was like, what? Who cares? And he was like, I need to take time off to mourn. And then I was thinking, then bleeping, take the time off to mourn. Like, who cares what happens with the show? But upon like further reflection, it just became clear to me that this show is his life's work and it represents something that he's sacrificed to build. And he talks often about being the son of refugees, and like the show that he's created is something that I think it's his child, and it's even more than that. It is the grandchild of people who crossed waters to get freedom. And it's a place that employs a lot of people and represents a lot of things to a lot of people. So I don't know.
Can we get swelling music under this? Why
Please
did we?
stop. Why are you trying to make this into a thing? You wanted me to do it. I'm telling you what I was thinking, and I got emotional thinking about how valuable this must be to him because how valuable it is to everyone else and what it represents, and that he trusted us enough. And that's also the reason why when I got here, there were like 15 people here. When I talked to him, he was like, I need you to do the show. So I think I'm flying down to be the rescue, be the hero all by myself. Then I get here, and everybody's here because he's like, I love this so much that I'm going to make everyone that will possibly come down here come and protect it. So I was a little sad when the Avengers were here. I just thought I thought all he needed was Black Panther, but nope.
Nope, I popped through a portal.
Get your ass back in the portal.
It takes a village, Dominique. You can't do it alone. You can't fill his shoes alone. It takes too many people.
Well, I mean, I'm actually more talented than Dan.
I mean, you can
Is
play
he
football
texting
better.
you before the show?
No, he does. So that's for people that he doesn't believe in. I've never gotten one of these pre-show texts other than, do your thing, Fox.
Well,
I've
that
gotten
counts as a pre-show text, though.
I've gotten texts about Dominique from Dan.
It says, let Fox do his thing.
That's not what they say.
Be smart.
Don't do poop jokes.
I don't do poop jokes. Be smart. Did you know that your head ages faster than your feet? Time moves faster at the top of a mountain than it does at the base.
Hell yeah.
You said be smart. I tried to inform you guys yesterday. You all mocked me. Dummies.
I was trying to
Do
think
you
of
know
that's
that in
what
Antarctica
she
you
said,
can
Joe.
take a pee and you can do it across 4 time zones because there are no time zones in Antarctica?
Why would you be taking
Time is wherever the home base is. So the Russian sub base in Antarctica, they're on Russian time, and then right next door can be the France base, and they're on France time, and they're right next door.
But that's all it's like a construct, though. Time zones is a construct. Like, I'm talking about
Well, it's based on the sun, actually.
No, time zones are not based on the sun.
Aren't they based on cows? I flew to a wedding at Notre Dame once, except I flew into Chicago, and I got there an hour late because what I believe to be farmers having a vendetta against me specifically.
It is a weird thing in Indiana. The time zone line is like in the middle to western part of the state, right before you get to South Bend. So the sun sets really late there in the summer, which is great, but it's super confusing. It's on a different time zone than what you would expect.
Arizona
How do you
like
deal
doesn't
with
acknowledge
meetings
it.
when you have that? when you're in a time zone change and it's right across the street. I've always wondered, when you set a meeting time, do you have to know the time of where the meeting is, or is the time of where you are?
This feels like an entree into David Sampson versus Dominique Foxworth.
No, I want David Sampson. I think David Sampson is really good. I want him to get better. And I think that David Sampson needs to understand that everything he thinks is not interesting. And asking a question about meetings, no one wants to go to meetings. You think we want to talk about meetings?
Lucy was just talking about how the state of Arizona does not recognize time. David wanted to know about if we were having a meeting, how would we resolve this conundrum?
And the time zone was across the street.
I mean, I think the answer is obvious. I think the time zone is where the meeting is, right? That's the time that you use, right?
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, unless you are like that mall in Kansas City that's like both in Kansas and in Missouri, then maybe you have a time zone situation where you don't know when it is. But like, I think most places are in a specific time zone.
There's an amusement park in North Carolina where it's half in North Carolina, half in South Carolina, and you can ride a roller coaster that takes you through both states.
On
really
the border?
Cool. Yeah. Carowinds. Very cool.
Please tell me it's called the Time Traveler.
They have no, they don't. That's missed opportunity. They had Thunder Road, and it's two roller coasters that race each other, and one's North Carolina and one's South Carolina.
Wow.
North Carolina always wins.
Hold on, did they not know where the Mason-Dixon was? They were both on the same side. I love your chair, Samson. That's beautiful. My other critique for you, Samson, as I was watching your show, is I find that you have too much headroom in your camera. You are not a very tall person, but you don't have to be that way in your own video. It's like you crop it so that you look like you're not all that big, and then you get in a big-ass baseball chair that also makes you look not that big. Why don't we get you a tiny chair and bring down the camera angle so that you look imposing? No?
It doesn't matter. I prefer people to see the background, and I don't want people to think I'm big and imposing.
No, I'm just mean from a visual standpoint, I would like the subject to take up more space in my screen, I guess. The visual imposing part was more of a joke, but it's like I'm watching this and I'm like, hey, and I guess you want me to look at all the tchotchkes behind you? I want to look at you. I want to look at you.
You're speaking Yiddish.
I'm trying to...
Tchotchkes.
Isn't that what they are? Or are they knickknacks? What do you want me to call them?
Those are synonyms.
Pieces of flair.
It's like
Office space.
TGI Fridays.
Hard Rock Cafes. Moments.
So
things for my kids to sell when I croak.
Insider trading. I'm sure you know a lot about that. Can you tell us about insider trading?
Don't do it.
Jed York. So Jed York, CEO of the 49ers, apparently is being accused of insider trading. And I don't know anybody. As I look around the shipping container and in here, I'm trying to find an insider trading expert. And you're the closest we got to it, Samson.
I feel like Tony would accidentally insider trade.
It would never be accidental. I just wouldn't do it. So the feds are listening.
Have you ever had an opportunity that you decided not to participate? Like, have you ever had access to information that you thought was, stop, we're going to get him arrested, guys. Relax. Shh. Have you ever had an opportunity, you come across some information that you thought was useful to trade, but you were like, nah, I can't do this? Oh, you're shaking. Yes, we found something.
Of course. I worked on Wall Street for 3 years, and you get inside information all the time. And that's what the ethical wall is for, which wasn't called the ethical wall back then, but that is what it's for. You're not allowed to trade on any information. You are meeting with companies all the time. You get information before the public does, and you have to wait. That's why there's things called restricted stock, which means that you cannot sell shares that you have earned or that have vested to you until a certain time. And that time normally comes after, let's say, earnings calls or after liquidation events or after things that would impact the price. And insider trading is also asking other people or giving other people information that they shouldn't have so they make money and then buy you dinner. That is also against the law.
So for you, David, as you survey sports and we see headlines, right, there was another story, right? The owner of Tottenham also involved in insiders trading, right?
Arrested.
Arrested. Yes, yes, yes. In your opinion, like when it comes to financial improprieties in sports, what are you thinking of when that comes to mind? Is it insider trading? What are owners, what are the people in the C-suite doing that seems to have a connectivity to sports as a genre more than the other parts of the world of finance?
Well, the thing we actually are doing, what is insider is what you're doing regarding your players. So we can mislead. In the financial world, you're not allowed to mislead investors regarding, that's a lot of what the Wolf of Wall Street is. That's what the penny stocks are, and that was the crime when you're selling shares of companies that don't actually have the products or produce the revenue that you're saying, and you don't care because you're gripping and ripping to get your commissions. We do that with players and with their value, with their health, with their ability. And so we would have more information about our own player. And if we are going to go public, which we would do, we would actually ask our scouts to say things to Baseball America or to MLB.com to pump up certain players who we wanted to trade because they had a decent pedigree. They would, let's say, a high draft pick, but we knew they were not going to perform, or we knew they were an injury waiting to happen. And we would try to pump them up as being good and valuable in order to see if we could extract any value from them in the market.
Get specific. When did you ship an asset out based on lies? What's your favorite favorite fleecing? Your favorite fleecing in the history of David Sampson?
We didn't do that. So that would be more interesting to me. And it's not, I'd like to say that we're alone because we've been fleeced as much as we have fleeced. And the better teams are the ones who fleece better. It goes back to the Astros, to me, that situation, and the sign stealing.
Yeah.
They just got caught.
Right.
They did something that we were all doing, except they got caught, and then it became a big thing. But with the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Marlins, all teams were stealing signs. All teams were using technology, and it was just being bad at it. And that's what the Astros suffered from. So we were bad at it a few times. We traded players where we had to get the player back or the player didn't come back. Josh Johnson is a good example. We traded him to Toronto. He failed his physical because his arm was falling off. But Toronto said, let's go ahead with the trade because we already announced it and our public wants it.
David, you're going to lie to us more after this break.
Why didn't we just hit him with the hard network out?
My clock
So David Sampson lives inside of what feels like a room inside of Lucy Rodine's Fuddruckers. And inside this baseball-themed room, I want the people not watching youtube.com/Le Batard and Friends to appreciate the background, which David Sampson is going to bequeath to his children. And Dominique has a question for you.
Who's Sparky?
Me. Sparky was the nickname given to me by Jack McKeon, who was our manager when we won the World Series. He called me the spark plug of the organization and needed me to take care of everything, and then called me Sparky, and I've been Sparky ever since.
That is the jersey behind David's head, Sparky number 91, a Marlins jersey. And he remains Sparky even still today at Meadowlark Media, also filling in various holes that are popping up around this creaky studio.
You don't know what spark plugs do, huh?
Nope.
Okay, cool. So I was wondering, we talked about last segment, we talked a bit about you trying to fleece people with the deals that you made, but we didn't get a specific time because you said every time. A specific time when you felt like you were most fleeced. You were so disappointed in a deal that you made that you felt you got out-Samsoned. Somebody out-Samsoned you.
Sir John's Pizza.
What? Well
Who
done.
remembers that?
I don't.
Like Sir Pizza?
Sir Pizza.
Sir Pizza is, I just combined
Papa John's
Papa
and Sir
John's
Pizza, yeah.
and Sir Pizza.
I was like, maybe that's something from back in the day. I don't know.
You just knighted Papa John.
I did.
He does not
for
deserve
no
it.
reason.
He does not deserve it.
No, he absolutely doesn't.
So we had the two times that I was fleeced the most is when someone who I trusted with our company was taking tickets that were allocated to him and reselling them at a profit, and we caught him and had to fire him, and it was very disappointing because I thought this person was loyal to me and the company, and it turns out that he was taking advantage of a benefit, which is to get game tickets and to get playoff tickets, and taking them, and you're supposed to use them for clients or for yourself, and then reselling them. And we were able to do a sting operation because I was feeling as though there was a possibility of abuse for a particular World Series that was a hot ticket, and it turns out that I had to fire this person, and that was disappointing to be fleeced in that way. On a business side, Sir Pizza is the example. When we opened the new ballpark, I didn't want Domino's and I didn't want Papa John's. I wanted a local great Miami pizza. And we did a tasting, and it was brought to us by one of our salespeople. They come in, they serve us pizza, and we love it. I'm in. We cut a deal with them, and halfway through our first season in 2012, they stopped paying the bills. And we ended up giving them a leash, but eventually we had to get rid of Sir Pizza and do a deal like everybody else with Papa John's. And it was very disappointing, to say the least. We sued them.
John. Good for Sir John. Way to get him. Let's talk about the sting operation. How'd you run a sting operation?
Yeah,
Please.
are you wearing a wire? How are you in a trench coat standing on the shoulders of an employee? Like, how does this work?
We run a lot of sting operations at the Marlins.
This is unsurprising to learn.
We're trying to catch people doing things that we know they're doing, and we're trying to find out things that are happening that we may not know about. And you do it by doing several things. One, when you're trying to find out who's leaking information to the media, you pull cell phone records and you plant fake stories to your people and see which of them become public.
The old Joe Dumars trick.
The old Joe Dumars.
It is an outstanding trick, but you have to keep track. So I had a document, unsurprisingly, where we'd write down which executive was told what rumor of a free agent we were looking at or a trade we were looking at, knowing that we weren't. And then we would see what would be out there, and we would use that. Then we would confirm it by looking at cell phone records, and we knew the numbers of Ken Rosenthal and all the other people who were breaking these stories and having sources within our company. And we'd match it up, and that would lead to, and did lead to, firings. So those are easy sting operations. The tougher ones, like the ticket situation, is we had to use MLB, and we had to use StubHub, and we had to use Ticketmaster, and we had to work with them in order to trace. It's so much easier now to do, but back then it was much more difficult. in order to trace the provenance of tickets, where they were coming from and where they were going. And you had to be sure, because if you're going to fire somebody, you have to make sure that they were doing what they said they weren't doing. And then we were able to do bank records. Now, that's a more tricky one because you don't necessarily and shouldn't have access to bank records.
David is
However,
smiling ear to ear, by the way.
I love it.
I just want the audience to know the glee that he takes in
It's not
recapping a
glee.
sting.
Yes, it
It's
is.
doing
You're
your
the same.
job.
It is, of course, Glee. You're the same person who said you love to fire people. This is definitely Glee.
No.
You fire
Dominique,
people.
I
Fire
said
people
I
who
love
deserve.
to fire people who deserve to
Right,
be fired.
and that's exactly what we're talking about.
No.
We're talking about
This
catching
is
people.
David finding out who deserves to be fired.
Yeah, so
which
what's-
is clearly part of the thing that he
This-
gleefully loves.
This just seems like the foreplay, David. You
Yes.
are thoroughly enjoying
Oh no!
getting
this
warmed
is not
up.
the foreplay. This is the final. This is the money shot.
Whoa!
Not the foreplay.
Whoa!
Hell yeah.
When you catch someone doing something that is stealing from your company, or doing something where you are not getting the benefit that you are contractually obligated to receive, that's not foreplay. That's doing your job.
Fair. And you enjoyed doing your job. That's all I'm saying. It's nothing to be ashamed
I
of.
loved it.
Yeah, that's all. We're
Glee
saying.
was an understatement, actually. But we interrupted
So
you.
how'd you get the bank records?
So
Dominique
you
and I are like
actually-
detectives on a case right now, by the way. I love. Can we get a swinging light over David?
I
You
don't
have
need-
the right to more than you realize.
Oh,
You just have to get permission.
I know that.
And when you have an employee who's up against it, who is lying to you and is willing to die with the lie and believes that they've covered their tracks enough, they will give you access to things that you otherwise would not have access to, and permission to see things you otherwise would not have permission to see. You've got the bank records of all of your employees because that's called direct deposit, but you don't know the transactions and you don't have subpoena power. That's like baseball always saying, and this is their favorite line, well, we don't have subpoena power. Subpoena power just gets you something faster. There are ways to get the things that you want without having subpoena power. You just need the permission. And employees who give you permission to see things, who are very worried about their job, are dying with the lie, and those are the ones that you catch. The ones who don't give you permission, you just have to do workarounds, figure out other ways, because you know you'll eventually catch them.
So I just wanted to clarify something about this whole storyline. Is it fair to say that at some point you sued season ticket holders, David? You sued fans as part of this story?
Well, it's not part of this story. It's part of another story. But yes, if you are a season ticket holder and you don't pay your bills, you get sued.
Oh, that's not
You
connected.
got to pay your bills.
So, did you ever
can't
feel?
just
Do you ever
walk
feel
away.
guilty for? Because I am of the belief that everyone is intrinsically good, and no one wants to steal or resell tickets or steal from your company. So, did you ever feel guilty for not paying people enough, compensating them fairly enough that they didn't feel that they needed to resell your tickets? Do you ever take responsibility for the fact that you created an environment where people
Wow.
felt that they needed to? No, never.
No, it's interesting you say that, because what you're inferring is that, or what I'm inferring from what you're implying, is that I was underpaying people, ignoring the fact that it's supply demand and that there's 15 people waiting to take the job at less compensation than the person in the job right now.
See,
And that's the same for everyone in this room. There are people who would take our jobs for getting paid less than we get paid. And so it's up to us to do our best to keep our jobs and to show value.
And that's
In
the
baseball, and in media, Dominique, in football, how about you? If someone could do your job better than you and get paid less, you think your GM wouldn't do that?
probably.
Would do it, guaranteed. Otherwise, he'd be fired. He wouldn't be doing his job.
It's a bug, not a feature
Yeah,
of the
I'm
whole
sure.
system.
So I guess it's just like there's and I guess in your view, morality can be considered subjective. I was just setting up a joke really just to make fun of you, but since we've opened this door, I think that the idea that paying someone as little as you can possibly pay them because there are other people who are willing to be more aggressively taken advantage of is not a justification. You know, it's like if someone will allow you to treat them terribly in a relationship, because you're really handsome, which I'm sure is something you experience, because there are lots of other people who are also interested in being with you, is not a justification for how well you treat that person. So I was joking, but since we've opened this door,
this is not about abuse. This is not physical abuse.
Oh, no,
or
I didn't
mental abuse.
say physical abuse. Okay, forget the relationship comparison. We'll use this one exactly. I don't think that just because someone is willing to take less money than the person that you're paying means that you are fairly compensating the person that you are paying. That's all.
You will never run a team then, right? Or you'll never run a business. Think about how Metalark operates. That's actually how all companies operate. You're trying to build your revenue while either keeping your expenses the same or cutting them.
So I think this is the difference between you and lots of other managers is I would believe that just that the way that you compensate someone, and at least the way that when I did manage, and if I would manage, I would believe that the goodwill engendered from properly compensating and taking care of people is actually a benefit to me. So like going out and trying to get someone who would take the least amount of money is not good for the way they feel about the company, the way that they're going to do the job that they do, or whether they steal from me. So I think that actually the justification is that you're using is one that is if you are playing a video game with people who don't actually have feelings. But if you manage enough, you recognize that the one thing that you can control and that you need to influence more than anything else is how people feel about your organization. Because if you want somebody who's going to work overtime, if you want someone who's going to work extra hard, if you want someone who's going to go extra mile, if you want these people, you would like to engender some sort of connection with them, emotional one. But saying, hey, when they come and ask you for a raise and you say, hey, there's 15 people outside willing to do your job for nothing. You know what they're going to do? They're going to approach their job the same way you approach hiring them. And they're going to be looking for opportunities to exploit you in the same way that you exploited them. I'm not going to stay for your rebuttal because I feel like I won.
That's a pretty good argument.
Can I keep talking until we run out of time?
You won.
That's a pretty
I got to
good
kill a
Good job,
clock.
Dominique.
Four corners, guys, kill a clock so David cannot.
What a
Well,
great
Dominique.
way to do an argument is to use up the time and say, oh, I guess there can be no rebuttal because we have a hard network.
What a great way to pretend like you could have rebutted by pointing out when you actually had time, by pointing out that I am running out the clock. You could have said something. All this time where I'm saying something, you could have said something. Just say, my bad, I take the L. You right, Fox.
This whole time, Tony has been wondering if there's a sting operation being run on him. Dominique is still taking a victory lap.
Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum.
Still, he's been dancing around the studio the entire time. I think he got elected.
Jessica, this was for you.
I think he got elected president during that break.
President of our union.
Hell yeah.
Just
The
what we need.
MLMPA.
More reasons for Jessica to not like me.
What? I don't know what you're talking about, David.
But David, the point that Dominique raised is a convincing one to me. It is indicating that not only is this a concern about human empathy, but a concern about human performance, right? You want the best performing employees, treat them as if they are not interchangeable, fungible parts.
So the best performing employees make it so you have to pay them. There are people in the organization. We had salespeople making mid six figures. We had people in the baseball department making seven figures, high seven figures. When you are indispensable and you cannot be replaced at a lower number, you get paid and you get recognized. But if you come in and ask for a raise and you have no basis for that ask and you are replaceable, you'll get replaced.
This is the problem with economists in general, is I think economics is a great field of study that is quite useful. But in individual circumstances, I think that you have a problem when you believe that you can use these type of principles with the way that people will actually behave. So I think by saying you're assuming that everyone is the rational actor, and you're assuming that everyone is motivated by the same incentives. So yes, I think for some people, and probably for you, David, which is why you probably assume that other people operate this way, that internal motivation and that justification, I'm like this also. And that I am hard on myself as a judge, and if I am not getting something that I feel I deserve, my first thought is, what more must I do? But not everyone operates like that. And I think that if you treat everyone that way, it's problematic.
I think the question that is sort of at the center of this disagreement, which is actually like a fascinating one to me, is who are we really talking about? Are we talking about employees with no claims to a raise? Or are we talking about employees who, based on performance, but not market, have claim to a raise, right? David, that's what we're talking about. What we're talking about really is those edge cases. Somebody is really good at their job, but there are also people who may be able to replicate that job to a degree when cost is factored in that make it actually more efficient for you, employer, to just pick the person who's a little worse but makes way less.
Why do you think that athletes get paid so much? Because it's very difficult to replace them.
No,
that's a fair point in general.
No. They get paid so much because they had a union and because they have free agency, which is, I mean, it's the crux of what we are saying, is that you need to take what belongs to you. That's why they get paid so much. And why they don't get paid enough is because the leagues have more power to negotiate for favorable collective bargaining agreements, not because the players are not more valuable than what they are. Well,
management always is going to have the advantage in any CBA negotiation in any industry.
But I think fundamentally, you have a hierarchical view of the way that things work in an organization, where it seems that you believe that you are the judge of what's happening, and they are trying to perform for you. And it doesn't appear to me that you view it in a way that you are doing the same thing for them. And I think that's where we, from a management principle, where we disagree, is I believe that while, yes, they are working for the manager is also working for them. And what you can provide for them is ultimately going to help you out. So I guess that's...
But my job, Dominique, is to provide them with an atmosphere where they are incentivized, whatever those incentives are. Google will say we want a ping pong table. I will say we want free lunch or free breakfast. Right. Whatever the case is, or bonuses, or title changes. Title inflation is a very popular thing if you know your employees. Right. There's some people that would trade money for title. Can you imagine how stupid that is? When an employee would come to me during a review and say, I'd like to be a senior director. And I'd say, well, you can be a senior director, but then your pay raise is not going to be the 7% or the 5%. We're going to keep you at the same pay, but make you senior director. Right. Your choice.
This is like when the NBA gave back weed. It's like, hey, we don't really care about this. If you want it, we'll take some other stuff. And meanwhile, the whole container is wondering what titles can they get now.
It's amazing. For people who are title hungry, you can absolutely take advantage of them in terms of compensation. And to me, I was way more interested in compensation than title. whether executive vice president or president or CEO or COO. I never cared about that. I just cared about what my contract was.
No, we all just want money.
Yeah. Cash, please.
You're smart.
This conversation may have run its course, but I think we've gotten to the fundamental disagreement is that I believe that there is some value in the goodwill that you can engender in your staff, which like permeates the culture. And I think when there comes a time that revenue is low and you need people to tighten their belts and you need people to accept that we're not having promotions and we're not having title changes, we're not getting more money, they will be more prone to do that if you have taken care of them in other times. When you need people to stay late, you need them to skip their son's softball game or their son's Little League game so they can work for you. I think these are the things that there's going to come a time, and that's why I guess I view a manager as working for the employees rather than the other way around. What you're trying to do is motivate them, get them connected to your organization, and however they do it or however you do it is up to you. What you're not trying to do is like say, hey, you're expendable cog. I can find a cheaper cog. Scram.
I also find that it's so frustrating, especially with the way that our healthcare system is tied into employment in this country, that a company would rather let someone go for poor performance, and essentially you could end up ruining someone's life that way if they need health insurance, which most people do, instead of giving them the tools to actually be successful in that job. And it seems like maybe you would hope that a company has some sort of moral obligation to that, but they don't. Right. They are always going to act in their self-interest.
When you say conversation has run its course and then you go on for 3 minutes, does that give me an extra 2 minutes? Or is now the 3 minutes mean it's run its course?
Oh, no. We the debate portion of this ended when I did a dance behind Pablo's head. When I was body rolling, that's when over. That's why I said we're having a conversation at this point, because you already took the L. But by all means, floor is yours, big chair.
Doesn't count, though.
No, it doesn't count, though. The game's over.
It's like talking after the end of the game. It's like shooting a shot at the end of the buzzer from half court. No, shoot it before. You don't want to take the 0 for 1 from three-point range.
When you had a chance, you decided to complain about my debate tactics rather than take the shot. You were talking to the ref. Once again, you have time to do something about the situation, and you still hollering at the refs.
There is not one company out there,
David,
in sports or out of sports. There's not one company who acts differently than I did. And you do that in the best interests of your company. That's why layoffs happen at companies. Furloughing during COVID. It's not because you want to do it. It's because the interest of the company is always greater than the interest of the person.
And that's where we disagree, is that I'm not sure that the interest of the person is not higher, is not directly connected to the interests of the company. And I think you're right. The tough thing that people use is they try to take the people out of this by saying company and shareholder value. But in actuality, a company is a collection of people, and the decisions that are being made by people, whether it's CEOs or boards or chairmen. Like, these are the people making the decisions. And to assume that you can make just cold decisions all the time is a lie. It's like saying that news does not have some sort of bias. If you are choosing what you produce as news, then there is inherently going to be a bias in it. And if you are making these decisions, while you can always find some sort of numerical justification that makes it feel like the decision you're making is right, what you're actually doing is making a decision based on what you think what you feel is right. And in my view, some managers can make decisions that they feel is right, that they feel are right, that are not directly tied to what maximizes their revenue for this particular quarter. It can be an investment that will maximize the value in the company long term. And I think that companies do, or some managers do, make decisions like that.
Your 401k plan would be in the crapper if the companies that it invested in acted the way that you want them to act.
Well, this is what occurs to me.
We shouldn't have to do all of that to like not have to work till we die. That's part of the
But
problem. That's why it's all like this is all tied into one another. All these things connect to one another.
There is a certain deathbed test, right? To bring it all full circle here, right? Like when you, David Sampson, CEO, are meeting the final door you will walk through, on the other side of which is eternity, right? What are you going to be most proud of? Fostering a community of people that accomplished a goal together, or is it going to be maximizing the profit margins of the company?
And I would disagree that is even a choice.
Well, but
I
Dominic,
think
but this
my
is,
argument would be
I know-
fostering that community would also maximize.
Yes, but here's the thing. At those edge cases, right, where there is a trade-off, this is where when I listen to David, I listen to how NFL coaches think. I think of David as somebody who is playing to win the game, and there's a ruthlessness to what he thinks is the best way to advance the ball down the field. And in the process, he's going to cut people, and he's going to bench people, and he's going to tell somebody to shoot themselves up with Toradol. But the process that he's following leads to a result that is how to maximize winning. And what you're arguing for is a wrinkle that argues that that's not A, the only way to win, but that B, there are other considerations that should be weighed against that goal.
Badaw.
I think it is a great aspiration to try to win and be profitable and be a great, kind person who never has to lay anybody off or make tough decisions as someone who's running a company. That would be amazing. I just think that that's what you find on Fantasy Island. And so in the real world, I just don't know how to do it. I wish there were CEOs. I wish that I'd be better. Of course, I don't revel in the fact that I had to do the things that you're saying I did to advance the ball. Of course, I understand what I was doing. I just didn't have another path. And of course, I would love to know whether another path could work. I've just never had it modeled for me, and I've never seen it. And reading test cases and reading things in business school or law school, when you're on the battlefield and when you're trying to win and trying to make money, when you're trying to do things for your company and knowing that some people are going to not be a part of it, you're going to have to release a player to win a World Series, but you'll give them a C ring instead of an A ring.
Yeah,
That's a problem.
No,
That's a problem.
What David
I've never
is
seen anyone do it.
What David is asking you, Dominique, is to show him how to love.
Yes.
I mean,
Please.
maybe I'm guilty of hyperbolizing your position, but you're definitely doing the same thing to me. I'm not arguing that you can't fire anyone at any point, and obviously you have to make tough decisions. What I'm arguing is sometimes you can make compassionate decisions that also are the right financial decisions. That's all.
David Sampson is still with us, still looking for a person to model human love for him. Dominique thrusting his way across the background of the studio was one form of modeling, I suppose.
Yep.
But David, you had something else you wanted to do before, actually finding out what it's like to feel.
Well, we generally on Thursday do a movie review. So I didn't know, Pablo, with you and Dominique in the chair, are you still interested in a movie review?
Absolutely. I mean, we tried to see a movie yesterday. I tried to see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
I couldn't go see it because I told my son I would see it with him, so I can't cheat on my
Priorities.
son with Pablo. Yeah.
Dominique showed me how to love yesterday by telling me no when I invited him to the movies.
Yeah.
Are you afraid to go to a movie alone?
I'm not afraid, but it was an activity that I need to do with a friend.
Yeah, we're here alone, so we've been doing lots of things together. So it would have been kind of Pablo showed me the love back by saying, "Well, if you can't see the movie, I won't see the movie without you. Let's do something together."
We tried to go on a Ferris wheel yesterday.
Yeah, but the line was too long. And then it's a whole nother conversation. We'll save that for
Why
later
didn't
in
you
the show.
choose a different movie?
Well, because Pablo had seen the other two movies that were...
I'd seen Oppenheimer. Dominique had seen Barbie. I had seen Mission Impossible. The only other thing was The Meg 2.
And we were like, nah, we're not going to do that.
So what movie did you see, David Sampson?
So yesterday, I still watch a movie every day, shockingly. And yesterday, I watched the new documentary on Apple TV about Steph Curry called Underrated. And it follows him from childhood. Very little talk about the fact that he's the son of Del Curry, the NBA sharpshooter. Del was interviewed a few times, but no mention that there could be any genes involved of any kind, which was strange. And it follows him through Davidson, through the Warriors. And the way they did the movie, they're trying to outsmart themselves. They kept going back and forth in time. They kept showing him as a Warrior and then Davidson and showing... It got very confusing. And they kept putting the date as a documentary style, so to bring you to where you're supposed to be. So March 21st, 2007. And in my head, I've lost track of years, and I couldn't remember. So am I going...
You're telling me that they made this into Tenet? They were
Yes.
alternating timelines, overlapping, that needed to be deciphered in like a Reddit thread afterwards?
That's exactly what they did.
They didn't
And
do it well.
There was no reason. And the reason I think they thought they had to do it is because Steph, he's sort of boring.
Yeah.
And his interviews were not engaging in any way. The best interview was of his grandmother, who's this sort of, a very defensive grandmother, like my grandson is the best. And I love that. And no talk about family issues, which is fine. That can be private. But they made it personal enough that they shot in Steph's house with his kids, with his wife, showing him getting a degree, which I thought was terrific. The best part of the documentary is that he did work and did get his degree, which his mom wanted him to do after he left Davidson a year early. The relationship he had with his coach at Davidson. So there's nuggets of greatness, but overall I was quite disappointed with the way the subject was handled.
Was Dominique in it?
We were
No.
watching. No, so Pablo and I watched Manziel's documentary yesterday, it's the untold story about Johnny Manziel. And I had been joking with Pablo that, when they do these type of documentaries, they often find, and I imagine they did it in the Steph Curry one also, they find talking heads,
The doubters.
who has said negative things. And
Gas
so,
bags.
Yeah. And so before Steph Curry won the last championship, the season before that, there was like a news cycle because I put up zeros over my eyes and said Steph Curry would win 0 titles. And then Steph Curry mocked me at the post-game press conference by putting the 0 goggles over his face. So while we were watching the Manziel documentary, Pablo and I were discussing the players whose post-career documentaries we will be in. And I'm pretty sure that at some point when Steph Curry has another documentary.
I think you're in this one, Dominique.
Awesome.
I'm now thinking back to it because it was a voiceover that involved zeros right before they did the 2022 championship. So it has to be you.
I mean,
Different-
it was a question asked. How many titles will Steph Curry win? And Dominique went all in on.
Yeah. Me and Kendrick Perkins, to be fair.
Great.
Yeah. Me and Kate.
But
me
has
and
no
KP.
one texted you?
Yeah, I
Don't
probably
you get
wasn't
a
in it.
text from
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who have watched it who would say, "Hey, I heard your voice." Like
Yeah.
I texted Pablo. I watched 38 at the Garden, And all of a sudden, there's Pablo.
Well, that
right
was the
on
opposite
my
scenario. I was a prophet who called this before everybody else. I believe that part of the issue might be, in this case, that I don't know how many people even know that this exists. This underrated documentary. I mean, but the thing that you started with, David, is the thing that made me not so interested in it, which was simply that buying the idea of Steph Curry as an underdog requires a narrative contortion that denies that he inherited the genes of one of the greatest shooters of all time. It requires us to understand Steph Curry not as a 6'3" son of two athletes who played at a high level competitively, but as a David. And I say that not to you specifically, but it works, but as a person against Goliath who would be a small underdog. And I don't believe that that is the Steph Curry story in reality.
Pablo, it would work so better if you hadn't explained.
Yeah.
I know. I have
that
that
it's
problem.
not.
Coach
for
him
you.
up, David. Coach him up.
Why do that, Pablo? You don't need to. People are smart enough to have gotten that.
Sure about that?
Well,
No.
the people who are smart enough to have gotten it would have appreciated it and then appreciated it less once Pablo
I felt
explained it.
bad. I can't stare at a man sitting inside a giant baseball glove and make short jokes. It's just hard for me.
So the question is, now that the writer's strike is happening and everything that's with all of the unscripted that you're seeing and all of the crazy sort of content, eventually the streaming services are going to run out of content. And the question is, will that be the impetus to settle this strike? And I was thinking about, while I was watching this documentary, how much is in the can at Apple or at Netflix or Amazon, et cetera, before it actually starts impacting a consumer's decision to pay the monthly fee. And so would I be happy paying Apple's fee if what I'm getting is underrated? And the answer is I'm still a yes, because of all the other things on Apple TV that I would be happy to engage in again or watch again, because when you binge a show, you tend to forget it more than when it's on weekly. So what I kept thinking,
I just like how David watches movies wondering if he should fire the streaming service.
This is so. I
don't
think
you?
this ties back into the conversation where we were having before, whereas I don't know that it's the best decision for the big networks and producers and streaming companies and TV networks. I don't know it's in their best decision to use the leverage, because they have leverage. They are more powerful than the writers or the actors. I don't know that it's in – not I don't know. It is not in their best interest to try to play hardball at this point, because what they're doing, in my view, is allowing consumers to retrain themselves. So it's not as if there's nothing to do other than TV. So while they are like holding a hard line against the writers and the actors, we are progressively turning to other forms of entertainment more and more. And once they are completely out of stuff, we will all be off of this. And then they're going to be like, man, wish we would have taken that deal a while ago, because now no one wants to watch this. We're all hooked on TikTok or whatever else we're doing.
But you're going to come back. And that's the theory that management has during this negotiation. It's like when you have appointment viewing. Let's say you're a Survivor fan, and every Wednesday at 8 o'clock you watch Survivor, and you know to be around every Wednesday at 8. When there's no new season on, you do something else Wednesday at 8 until the next season comes, and then you change your plans back to be available Wednesday at 8. And the bet is that while people are distracted by doing other things, like during COVID, people were watching the Tiger documentary or The Last Dance or other things like that. That stuff that just doesn't fly as well when there's more content available.
Yeah. And I guess that's the thing. I'm not sure that people will come back, particularly young people. I think that I'm not sure that they will come back. But whatever. It's a whole nother conversation in an industry that neither of us know a whole ton about. But actually, I do. Never mind.
We all do work in it.
know.
You have written on
I'm
scripted programming.
Yeah, I'm a part of the union. I'm a accredited TV writer, David Sampson.
Are you on strike?
Yeah.
Why are you
Are you a scab right now?
No, this is not the same
You
thing.
think anything we've done on this show feels written?
Yeah, I wrote for a scripted television show. This is not what we were doing here.
That's right.
Which one?
Well, it didn't come out. It was in the middle of filming when everyone went on strike.
Can't talk about it anyway.
Yeah,
the
that's
rules.
right. I can't promote it.
Thank
so.
you, Roy, for Maintaining the integrity of Dominique's
You got it.
union
I
philosophy.
mean, I could say what I wrote for because it's not out. I'm not promoting
That's
something
true.
because it's not out. They haven't finished producing it. They had to stop recording it or filming it because of what happened. It's the next American crime story. It's Aaron Hernandez stuff. It's yeah.
That's a great tease. I feel like it's the Uma Thurman explanation of her pilot in Pulp Fiction, the pilot that never was picked up.
With
I
the bad
really
tomato
hope
joke.
this one is picked up. I mean, it has been.
Yeah,
I want to. I won't do any more talking about it. I just know that whenever
Yeah.
I've talked to Dominique about it, it sounded amazing.
The funny thing is, when you're on the outside of this, it feels like the people have so much more influence than they actually have. And you want to be like, blame the writers, you want to blame the director, you want to blame the actors, but there are so many hurdles as I'm learning and so many hands that touch this that ultimately one or two people are going to get a lot of credit for a successful thing, but it requires so many other people to have bought into this process, so many other people to be willing to sacrifice and work really hard, so many other people to love a piece of art as much as the artist loves it, which is another reason why you should treat people with respect and not just...
Can you imagine the nanny getting the credit to end the strike?
Oh, she deserves it.
Fran Drescher, yeah,
Great speech. Shout out Fran.
absolutely. Dominique, is this why when I asked you if I could get a cameo in the next American crime story, you said no?
Yep. That's exactly why. And I also...
Because you'd have to pay him?
No, I don't have that type of influence. Like, when they first hired me, they hired me as a consultant because I don't think they believed that I was capable of writing. And so then I mean, I hadn't done it before. I respect them. But then I worked my way into proving to them. So by a weekend, I was a staff writer. And you know what staff writers can't do? Hey, put my friend on. My friend wants to be an extra. No.
I just wanted to play like a professor at the University of Florida. I just
That'd
wanted
be
to.
good, actually.
I wanted
I'd
to
like
teach
that.
Aaron Hernandez about biology or some other thing that people think I'm good at that I don't actually know anything about.
Yeah, you really aren't as smart as you project.